Hello, Dan here. You've probably heard of Marmoset Toolbag and how good it is at baking normal maps and textures. It's also very good renderer. But did you know you can also texture in it too? In this video I'm going to show you how I textured this asset using Marmoset Toolbag tools. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm here inside Toolbag and we're going to start the process off by doing our bake. So I'm going to push this bread icon which brings up the bake project, and I'm going to use the quick loader to bring the low poly and high poly both in at the same time. So click load, we just drag over our two files and click open. So there we see our low poly. If I just turn that off and change it to H, we can see that's the high poly. Now the main differences here is I sculpted a little bit of edge wear, rounded off all the edges and made holes for these keys, which we didn't need in the low poly, so it's just flat. And we can bake that detail on. And before we do that, I just need to change a few things here. I need to alter this, put in a file name, briefcase computer, bake. I want to up my reds to 4K, and I want to push multiple texture sets because I've got two materials. One is just for the keys, and the other one is for the rest of the object. Now, before we do the bake, I want to just do this. Put new project there, and new project there. Now, what this does is lets us do the texturing in Marmoset. So let's configure this. We want object ID rather than material ID. But we may not need to use that. I'm going to turn on curvature and ambient occlusion as well. So we should now be ready to bake. So I'm going to push the bake button, wherever it's gone. There it is. Okay, so there we are. There's our baked object and we're ready to start the texturing. So to begin the texturing process, we'll go into the texture workspace by clicking here. You can see we've got a new workspace which has our objects down here, and we can go here and have tool settings or history, and you can see all the things we've done. We have a library here which allows us to download textures, materials and objects from the Marmoset library. And you've got a canvas window here which has the UV map or the 2D texture that you are working on. Now we don't really need that, so I'm going to just push this just to pop it out and then close it. And we've got more space here to work with. And then here we've got the different materials. If we push layers, we can have all the layers that we're going to be using. And so let's get started. So let's start working on this MBC material. So I'm going to double click it, make sure that it's selected. Go into the layers. Actually, we can double click it here. There we go. And now we're ready to start working on this. So the first thing I'm going to do is texture the main briefcase part. I'm going to start with the edge. Now the edge is this metal piece that runs all the way around, top and the bottom. So we're going to start here. I'm going to type metal in and then click here, and you can see these are all the different metals and things that are metal, like these bolts that you get with Marmoset Toolbag. Now you have to download these. That's what the arrows are telling us to do. You can see I've already downloaded some of these. So I'm going to use this aluminium first. So I'm going to right click in this layers window and I'm going to add a new fill layer. Now what I can do is I can drag my aluminium material over into this material reference slot. And what that does is that puts all these channels in. So you've got the albedo, roughness, metalness, normal, bump and ambient occlusion. And we can adjust these after the fact if we want. It's good for tweaking. But for now, I'm just going to use the materials as they are. So we've got that, and you'll see that it's applied it to everything. I only want it to go onto the top and bottom, so I'm going to use a mask. So I'm going to push add mask to selected layer, and I'm going to use color mask black. And what that does is it removes any texture because it's made a completely black mask, and you won't see anything when it's a black mask. What we need to do is add white to the area if we want this to have the effect. Now to generate this, I'm going to use this button here, which add a new input processor layer. If I push that, I can go color selection, and I can change the source from material ID to object ID. And if I push add new, you can see we get this color map up that we generated when we did our baking. So I just click on that blue and then add another one. Click on this weird green color, and that limits it to the top and bottom, but we still need to get rid of it from this part and from inside. So we'll do that next. What actually we're going to do is add new layers on top of this one, and they overwrite the one that's underneath. It's a bit like Photoshop in that way. So the first thing I'm going to do though, before I do that, is just shift and click on both of these layers, right click and push group selected. And I can give a name to this. I'm going to call this case metal edge. Okay. So let's add a new fill layer. And we're going to do the leather. So if I type leather in, there's quite a good leather faux texture, and I'm going to use that. So let's grab that, drag that into our material, like so. You can see it's a bit big detail, so I'm going to change the tiling to 2. That's looking a lot nicer. And I'm going to change the colour to this sort of bluey colour that the source material had. There we go. Okay. Now I need to limit this to just those areas. So I'm going to click on the mask, and this time I'm going to use paint mask black, and I'm going to use this UV island select. I'm going to click on that one, and I'm going to hold down shift and click on that one. And now I can use this fill to fill inside those spaces. And now we've got what we want there. Now we need to do the same thing inside for the liner. So I'm just going to shift click on those, right click, group selected, call that leather. Okay, so let's do the lining next. So I'm going to use a felt material for that. Right click, add new fill layer, drag our felt into the material slot. You can see that's way too big, so I'm going to change my tiling to 5. That should give us a finer grain. I'm also going to change the colour. Let's go lighter with that, and a bit brown I think would look nice. I think I'm going to up my tiling even more. 10. Yeah, that's looking a bit better. Starting to see a bit of tiling there, but I don't think you'll notice it. We could go a bit darker, desaturate it a little bit. That looks better. Okay, now we need to limit it again. So we need mask, paint mask black, and then use this UV island select, click inside there, and I'm going to click here as well, and holding down shift. There we go. And then use fill to fill those parts. Okay, good. Next, we'll do the metal pieces. So let's shift, click on both of those layers, group selected, call that lining, add a new layer. I'm going to use a steel material for this. I've already downloaded one. You can see that doesn't have this arrow, which indicates that it's present on my hard drive. Right, so if I click that and drag that onto material reference as before, it textures everything, and we now need to mask it off. So to do that, I'm going to use black mask on there, and we're going to go around and select all these pieces. We can use the mesh select for some of this, just to grab the parts that we want to be this stainless steel. I'll do the hinges as well. Okay, we'll flood fill these. Okay, that's looking good. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is the materials for the case of the keyboard and whatever that is. So for that, I'm going to use this plastic grainy texture. I'm going to add a fill layer, and I'm going to grab my plastic grainy material and stick it in the material reference. I'm going to change the colour to a nice blue, a bit lighter. Now you can see it's blotchy. That's just a weird effect that this material has, which we can get rid of by turning the contrast down. Whoops, not in the reference, but in the albedo map. There we go. Okay, so let's mask this. So we'll use colour mask again. Black gets rid of it. Click on this button here and do colour selection. Add object ID, add new, and we want that. Add new and that. Now you'll notice how when I did that, it overrode this bit, which should be the liner or the lining. So I'll just fix that. I'm going to just move that underneath there. But let's just group these together first. So right click, group selected. Keyboard case. I just drag that underneath the lining, and you can see that now brings that back. Now I need to have metal for these buttons, so let's do that next. I'm going to use like a brushed aluminium, and I think I'll use that on this camera as well. So let's add a new fill layer, aluminium brushed, put it into our material slot. We'll do mask. We'll probably do it paint mask this time. And then I'm just going to grab mesh select to select that part. And then these. No, that's fine. And then fill. Now you'll notice when I fill this, what it's actually doing is it's filling this in with white, because on the mask where there's white is where it's letting that texture show, and then the black areas is blocked out. So of course, if you wanted to alter this, I can change this mask value here and put it back down to 0, and then change that back to how it was. You can also, if you want, let's just deselect all of these. We can select our paintbrush, and we can just paint freehand onto things as well, which is useful. Okay, so that's that part done. Let's grab those and group those. We call that aluminium. aluminium brushed because I've got another aluminium. There. Now I need to fix these lens caps. So right click, add fill layer. We'll use our plastic again. Got that nice plastic grainy. Put that into our material slot. And then we'll add a mask. Okay, group. Lens caps. So I want to do the phone part next. Let's add a new material. Add in a fill layer. We'll use our plastic grainy material, drag that into our slot, and then do a mask. Paint mask black. And then we'll use this mesh select button. Hold down shift and select the parts we want to fill. Okay, and then I want another plastic for the buttons. Let's just group them. We'll use plastic glossy this time. Make that white. Then I want another plastic for these bits. And fill layer. We'll use another glossy plastic, but this one will be darker. Okay, good. Next thing I want is plastic for these curly cables. Use a sort of rubber material, rubber mat. Let me just double click that so it downloads. Good. Drag that into our material slot. Add our mask. Fill that piece. Do the same on that one. I'd like to use that rubber on the feet as well, so let's just click on those. Okay, good. Okay, now let's add this material for this sort of grill here, like a speaker grill. And then if I scroll down, there's a very good material in the library that I will use. There it is, steel grate. Drag that into our material slot. We need to mask it off. And we can adjust our tiling here to something that, oops, not there. We need to do it actually on this bit. There we go, 8. There we go. Yeah, that looks fine. Now we need some material on here. Let's just name this grill. This is a sort of chrome, and then this is like a plastic. So let's do the plastic first. We'll use a glossy plastic this time. Drag it into our material slot. And change the colour to red. And then add a mask. Paint mask. Do the UV select to grab that bit and that bit. And then fill to get the red. Now we need the chrome bit. So let's group these. Red plastic. Chrome. There's a nice chrome. We'll just double click that to download it. Then that can go here, and then we need to select this part. We need to add a layer, paint layer for a mask, and then select the bits we want to be chrome, and then fill them in like so. Okay, now we need the plastics around here. We use that plastic that we keep using, the grainy one. Drag that in here. That's about the right colour, to be honest. Do the mask, paint mask black. We'll use, actually we can probably fill it. There we go. But it's doing that, we're selecting the whole screen. So let's come back out and do it by UVs. Just select those parts and then fill them like that. Lovely. That's the RT frame. New fill layer, we'll do the screen now. This can be just, actually we don't really need a material for this. I'm just going to change some settings on here. So we do the mask again. Select that piece, fill it. And now what we can do is we can change our roughness value, get it right down, change the colour. Desaturate that a little bit. Yeah. Okay, so that's that part done. What I want to do now is add some of the details. Now, I made some of these in Photoshop, things like text, and cutouts for this camera. So let's have a go at that next. Let's just name this CRT. Okay, add a new fill layer. And what I want here is a sort of cutout in there. Now I could paint this in using one of the stencils, but I didn't quite get it how I wanted, so I created a separate mask which I'm going to use now. So let's use this plastic grainy, put that in there, and then I'm going to mask this off with a fill mask this time as black. And now we've got this slot here which we can pop a mask in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my folder and where the project is. Let's just bring that over, and I've got some masks here, and this is one we want, cam side mask. So what I need to do is just click, hold and drag that in over my mask slot like so, and then change from triplanar to UV. And now you can see that's now given us that. And what we can do here is go back to my fill layer here, and I can adjust my bump settings here to set that in. You can see how I can pop it out, or I can push that in. We get depth there. It's quite nice to be able to fiddle with this after the fact and get it how you want. So we're going to repeat that process, but this time we're going to use it to put some text on this bit. So let's just name that camera inset. Add another fill layer. This one doesn't have to have metalness or anything like that, because it's just going to be text. Same thing again, fill mask black, and I'm going to bring my text layer over and drop it in this mask slot, and then change it from triplane to UV. And you can see now that's given us the text here, and we can change the colour and stuff if we want. Okay, that's that part done. Now I'm going to move on to do the keys. Actually, before I do the keys, I forgot to do the handle, so let's just do that quick. And let's just name this text. Right. Fill layer. We'll use our trusty plastic grainy again. Putting it in the material slot. And then we'll just fill that handle up. Lovely. Okay, now we'll do the keys. So this now means we need to switch to this BC keys one. So I'm going to double click on that, click on layers, click there. And now we're in the layer for the keys. So first we're going to need the plastic for the keys. So fill layer. We'll use our trusty grainy plastic again, but this time we're going to go and make it a little bit different colours, like a greeny blue. Yeah, that looks okay. And let's turn the contrast down on that. Now I need to move it from these bits, but actually I don't think I'll necessarily need to do that here. What I can do is put the layer for these keys, which are white, on top of this, and it'll overwrite it. So let's just call these keys. And we'll add the letters as well. We'll do that now. Let's add another layer. We don't need metals or normal bump. Fill mask again, and the same process as before, just drag this over. Now this is again, look, I made a text mask in Photoshop, and I'm just going to bring that over to the mask slot and click UV, and then there we go, that pops that on. So now I need to get these keys to be white, and also I need to make the text black on those ones. So let's actually do that. Let's grab these and group white letters, and add a new fill layer. We'll use our plastic again. Slightly yellowy white for this. It's too dark. That's better. Now let's do the mask. Keys, and now we need another layer. This is going to be black letters, so we do the same thing again. Add, well, first of all, let's make it black. Let's just get rid of those, make it black, then add our fill mask black, and then drag our text mask or our key mask into the mask slot there and change it to UV. And now we've got that. Now, of course, it's now overriding all of these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another mask, paint mask black, and then I'm just going to paint. We can just, well, we can click here and do it. Change the fill. Whoops, don't need to do that. Just deselect that, and then just click on these just to fill those in and get the black one on. Okay, so we're pretty much done now. I want to add a little bit more detail to it by adding some bumps on the latch. So we need to switch back to our other material now to do this. So let's just change that. We need to go into our BC one. Okay. Let's just call that handle. We didn't do that. Group selected. Handle. Okay, so add another layer. Now, what we're going to do here is I'm going to add a fill layer, but I'm going to have it so that it just works on the bump. And I'm going to make it bump in a bit. And then we're going to use a stencil to mask it. So let's have a go at that. So we'll just turn off all of these apart from bump. And I'm going to set the bump to begin with 0.47. We can adjust this later. And I'm going to add a paint mask black. So if I start painting now on here, if I make my brush a bit smaller, see, I start to push that in. If I go back to this fill layer, I can just mess around with that now to get it how I want. But what we're going to do is go back here and just undo this. There we go. And I've got a mask to use for this, or a stencil actually. So I'm going to go into my folder again, and it's this here, this latch stencil. And I'm just going to drag that in. But first we've got to go to our brush and make sure we've got our tool settings selected here. And there's a slot here for a stencil. So I'm just going to drag that and pop that in there. And you can see we get this now. And now where I paint over this, you're going to get the mask. So I just need to adjust this and get it how I want. I'm going to switch to a front view to make it easier. And then let's just zoom this in. We can actually adjust the size of the stencil by holding down Z and right clicking and dragging, and we can move that around. Or if I left click, I can rotate it. Or if I middle click, I can move it to the left and right. I'm going to turn symmetry on so we get the same thing on the other side. And then I'm just going to paint over like that. Okay, so let's go back into our camera view. Yeah, that looks fine. Let's just check it's on the other side. You could do with being a bit sharper perhaps, so let's go here and then increase the sharpness, which we can do by add layer, adjustments, sharpen. And then we can just turn up sharpen strength. Something like that. And then we can also go back into our fill layer and alter the amount of bump to something that looks about right. A little bit more maybe. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Okay, so that's the texturing done. We can now go back into our scene. We can actually get rid of the bake project and then just load our low poly in, and it will keep the same textures that we've just made. And now we can start adjusting this, and maybe we can have a different different sky. Whoops. Let's do library. Let's change it to studio and pick another one. Let's try that high key one. Double click it. There we go. And we can change the background to color. We can turn on all our nice settings. And there we are. That concludes this tutorial, and I hope it's been helpful. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.